Hi gang, welcome to Sketchin with Izzy. How are y'all doing today? Hopefully all are well. Let's real quick do a sound check. You guys are able to hear me okay? Melon Technology, welcome. Avid, awesome. Thug has redeemed the wheel of art direction right at the beginning. The very beginning. I haven't even started yet. I didn't even tell you what the painting would be, you monster. Oh, thanks, Avid. Oh, that's awesome. It was by accident. Yeah, I totally believe that, Thug. 100%. Ha! Awesome. Hi, Lisa, if you're watching. That's great. Okay, well, we shall roll, or rather spin the wheel of art direction shortly. Let's send this thanks here. Big love. So yeah, we're just continuing with our Bloodflower studies. I'm going to be doing a scene. I was thinking that I would pick one of the scenes from the story and maybe start doing a little bit of exploration with a specific goal in mind this time, rather than just sort of just fooling around. So I wanted to take one of the early scenes where Bloodflower is in a river hanging out with her friend, just this really simple, light kind of thing. Before all of the violence and madness begins. So I figure it would be kind of cool just to do a little bit of an environment study. You may not know, but environments are one of my weaknesses. So I look for excuses. We've talked about this a lot in the past, where you got to try and find ways to use the work that you have available in order to study and focus on your weaknesses. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to be playing a little bit with working on composition for an environment. All right, so let's see. Wheel of art direction. I got a whole thing set up for that. Let's take a look here. This is our first time using the wheel of art direction. Whoa. See that? Right there? That's the wheel of art direction. And this is gonna be, you like that? Hey, production value. All right, so you could probably see some of our fun options here with the wheel of art direction, and I wanted to include the wheel of art direction for you guys special because this is going to represent part of what we do as professional artists. When you're working for somebody else on their project, which is usually how this sort of thing goes, you will get feedback. And a lot of times the feedback is very difficult to translate because a good chunk of art directors don't necessarily speak the same language that we do. So they may ask for really strange things. And so I've included in this list that you're going to see, well, we're not going to be able to list it, but you can see some of them right now. I've included actual art direction that I've gotten before, and I've mixed it in with some of the stuff from the, what is that, the 20-sided art direction die? Thug, you recommended it. I forgot what it was called. But anyway, it was sort of a randomized art direction thing, and I thought this would be kind of fun. So you could see how, firstly, some of the random stuff that will come up, and then how to respond to that, and then also how to try to fit that feedback into your work. So this will be fun. Thanks for buying that, Thug. Appreciate it. All right, without further ado, let's give this bitch a spin. Ho ho ho! Where she lands, no one will know. You get to change the color. Well, you get to pick a color, Thug, and we will try to implement that in this illustration. Green, maybe, I think would be a good recommendation. But you don't strike me as the type to let me get by with just green. Pocket art director, that's right. Thank you. This is our pocket art director. You get to spin the wheel of pocket director. You would like magenta, okay. you didn't see that I could totally pull this off. I mean, that last painting had magenta and purple in it. I mean, come on, that's kind of our channel theme color. Fair enough, magenta will be included. Thank you, art director. You say, hey, good notes, sir. I'll get right on that. And then we begin. Holy shit. All right, let me switch back. That's pretty fun stuff though, huh? All right, here we go. So I have some reference here. Let's take a look. These are the references from last week along with our illustration. For those of you that are just joining us, this is what we painted last time. This is our main character, Bloodflower, the titular character from the book that I'm planning to produce. It's a mythic retelling of the Immaculate Conception set in Mesoamerican sort of myth/history. So a little bit of both. We're doing it with as much respect as possible, but also getting crazy. Gareth got a raid of 1,700 a short while ago. That's awesome. Whoa, congrats to Gareth. He's awesome. If y'all don't know Gareth, it's Gareth War. Did I say it right that time? He's a Scottish comedian that I follow on here. He's really great. I enjoy watching his show. He does he plays scary games and just scares the crap out of himself. It's wonderful. Nice. All right, so here we go. This is the new ref that I just picked up, and you can see already that I stuck with one particular image, which is this one down here, which I think kind of, it's a good spot that's sort of like, you know, a lonely place, but also kind of like of solitude, you know, a little romantic spot, which is a cool shot for, you know, capturing some light, showing some of the environment, and then also kind of, you know, showing the relationship of these two characters. So that's going to be where I'm going to be heading with this, now with magenta. Thanks, Thug. And yeah, so this other stuff is for just detail, visual interest, noise. May use it, may not. It is what it is. So that's where we're going to go today. We're going to be turning that on and off a lot. So when I first start out these kinds of illustrations, it's pretty straightforward. This is just a single layer. I like to start on kind of a gray background. It's usually gray, mid-tone or dark gray, depending on like what I think the end result will probably be, because I don't want to paint a whole bunch of value on top of white, even though you do end up painting over everything. It's just this old habit that got kind of beat into me in school where you tone the canvas. So we have toned our canvas gray, and I have started just sort of sketching in the rough shapes for this, with this environment as my inspiration, sort of as the overall composition. Now you notice that there's something specific here. This photo is super panoramic, and my composition is nowhere near as broad as that one. Narrow and broad. Short and broad. There we go. So I want to capture the essence of that thing, get that kind of feel in a tighter composition. So this is going to be the challenge, is trying to find a way to imply that depth and the vastness of this big river, and also kind of make it so that it'll fit in the printing, because this will have to be roughly a double-page spread. All of this said, I haven't actually measured out any book stuff yet, so that's something I got to get on, and behind the scenes is start looking at book sizes, because I'm going to have to start making these to print size. Slight magentas could look really cool in the shadows. That's a great place to put magentas. Excuse me, especially if we are doing lots of greens. A nice complement in color between light and shadow. It's something that your eyes kind of naturally do in nature, and as a painter with painter's eyes, if you will, you start to see more of that, and you learn to punch that. All right, so my focus right now, I'm thinking about my big, light, medium, and dark shapes. So the big reads, I've got a dark on the left, a little dark on the right, mid-tone, and then some lights with mid-tone. So let's turn off color and take a look at what we got here. So I'm squinting at it. This is a very dark, mid-dark key. and it's going to have lights for our accent values. So I'll probably want to put my figures somewhere down there. Of course, I wanted them to be playing in the water and just hanging out. So, wait, did I turn the color back on? I did. I think the way I was thinking about this is that the clay might be a lighter tone, so that our figures could be dark silhouettes in front of that. So we'll be playing a little bit back and forth, trying to figure out where this is going to work. I'm just using a round, sort of flattened ovoid round brush just to get these tones in. You want this stuff, you want the big value reads to happen as fast as possible. You don't want to be rendering at this stage. This is the essence of the composition. You want to get all of the big major decisions done right away. I know that there's going to be sort of shadows underneath we can see all these shadow plane underneath the foliage of the trees. And then it's going to kind of gradient up as the atmosphere fills the space back here. So it gets lighter and lighter going into the distance. I'm just going to swap that. So I keep turning on the bottom one anyway. I think the thing here will be to squash this shape. Oops. Maybe this pokes out at the top. This is where you do your graphic design, where it's all big shapes and figuring out those contours. The more I'm looking at this, the more I'm thinking that this can be much darker. The clay might be magenta in this case. That might be a good offset for our figures, and a separation between the reflected green in the water and the green of the trees. It's a good way to go. Damn it. All right, real quick, let's kind of think about these figures. Look at that. My instinct is, of course, to put them in a place like this, but that's going to be pretty deep in the water. So maybe somewhere over here, so that they can offset the sort of the grand big shape over here. This is creating a visual balance. So we can have figures over here that are this size, playing in the water. They're just standing there right now. They're just clothespin figures, but they're just placeholders. And I just want that so I can get an idea for how the balance of the big greater shapes will work. And it'll help me develop a sense of scale. I know I definitely want the river to circle behind this lump of trees in the foreground. So we're going to separate ourselves from our reference a tad just to let this happen. Small brush, just for a moment there. When you're working with a really horizontal composition, you want to look for opportunities because In this case, my horizon line is so low to the bottom of the canvas. I have to do a lot of sort of faking that depth because you can't. There's not very much horizontal information. Usually with depth, you need vertical overlap, right? So when you have something that's we're really squashed like this, all of those details get very pronounced in a horizontal way. So any details like having little sandbanks and things like that need to be slivers that kind of slide in and out of view and zigzag back and forth to create that feeling of depth. So I can even have a sandbar that kind of comes out in front of our figures like that. That's just as an example. We can edit that as we go. Maybe there's a sandbar here. And you'll notice I'm adding these darks. These are already meant to complement and be reflective of everything above the waterline. And here, because I have these figures telling us roughly how big this environment is, we can start putting in these tree details. Don't need to be the full details, but just start massing the foliage to show how big this forest really should feel. And I'm not trying to do details yet. This is still just big, fluffy, loose shapes. It's almost like a cloud pattern. I think it might be interesting. I'm going to give myself just a little note here to do maybe God rays coming in. How fun is that? This is all sloppy right now because it's just notes, just ideas. But we have now been drawing for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I started the initial sketch pretty much right when I started the countdown. And we have a rough composition here. Like if we were to show this as a sketch for our, if we needed to do key art or something like that for an animation or something like this would be sufficient enough to explain what is happening. You couldn't show it by itself, but you could take this, show an art director, and say, "Hey, this is the idea that I have." So this would be what I'd count as a thumbnail for sure. Let's make sure that that's there, but I don't want to look at it right now. Not sure how much further I want to take. Let's do a little bit. Let's start hinting at overlap. So by introducing all of these different layers, we're going to imply lots of depth and lots of scale. Ah, bloody hell. This is going to be a silhouetted tree right here. That's meant to be in the deeper foreground. So it's going to be almost entirely about that contour edge. Get those cool details. Dude Cameron redeemed the rename a layer. Ah, yes. You wanted to add a color last time, right? It was a color change. So we have magenta and neon green. Both need to be represented in this at some point. So the challenge is on. Also, you are all monsters, and you should burn in hell. It's just an opinion, but probably. All right, so what did you want to... Which layer do you want to rename? We've only got the 5, and what would you like to name it? I'll let you think about it. Layer 11 needs to be foot stuff. That is absolutely acceptable. The mod bot approves. There it is. Enjoy. You guys are weirdos, man. You're just weird. Nice. Avid, you're stuck now. You cannot escape. Oh no, Thug. What layer would you like to name? The Kaituga alien one. What was that one? Top layer. Boom. Done. Now you'll notice that there's 2 levels of name a layer. There's name a layer, which is you can name an unnamed layer. Rename a layer allows you to name somebody else's layer. Metal video. Oh, right. That's right. No, I didn't check it out. I got to give that a shot. Oh, what did you do? You guys are going to let me paint it all. What do you want to name? Was it the Maui or the Maori? The Modi. Rename it their layer to layer 20. The We Are No Strangers one? Sorry, Thug. Womp womp. You guys are monsters to each other. Have a heart. Have a heart. Time was spent on that. All right. You know, let's go ahead. Since we have kind of shapes in already, let me do a light pass real quick. Since we've got all of these values already, I have a feeling throwing in some light values just to start seeing where we can get our little pops of value will be great. So let's try it. First of all, let's look at our lightest light and see how tight we've kept this key. I'd say less than 50. Oh yeah, less than 50%. Woo, snug. That is one tight value key, guys. Dirty. Boo! Take that. You'll just have to buy the whole song with your Z bolts. All right, so we're going to do light here, which is going to be, I want to imply that the God rays are actually lighting the surface of the clay and the sand here. This might be a good spot for some lovely magenta shadows. I'm going to use that. I definitely want to hit my lightest lights right around here. I'm going to do little, water sparkles. Gotta have water sparkles. Glitter. Sparkle time. Nice. Okay, and then I would like to do, I think, some hints of lights coming through here. And this is where we're going to get our neon green. I'm planning this out ahead of time because I know I'm going to be struggling to get these colors to work with each other. So there's going to be some lit up green foliage back here. Maybe even a little bit like that. What do you think of that? That kind of works, huh? Let's blend that together so it doesn't feel so much like bokeh. We can totally add bokeh later if you're interested in seeing stuff like that. But I think the focal depth that we're going to be working at is it's going to be an endless depth. We won't need it. I don't know that song. We're no strangers to love? How does that go? No idea. You're all monsters. Okay. So we've done a little bit of layout there. We have a pretty solid, I'd say, footing. Okay. I'm going to group our value sketch, make a new layer. I'll get super lazy here, kids. Making a copy of that one. Oh shit, he's doing it. He's doing it. Am I a bad person? Am I a cheater? No. This shit takes time. I'm doing it live. Come on. Trying to get these done fast. Nice. This is a great bypass for actually colorizing yourself because it's going to give you a whole bunch of varied color information from the get-go, which I always like. It's a freebie. So if we look at the navigator over here, you can see actually because the values are close, we already have a pretty good start. Oh, it's the Rickroll. Oh, I don't know all the lyrics to the Rickroll. Come on, man. I only know like the two that everybody sings. You know what it is I've gotten so good at recognizing the Rickroll. Like I hear the first couple of notes and I already deleted that whatever. Rename a layer. Redeemed. Layer 22 is now layer 200,000. I wonder, will Photoshop follow? I don't think so, but it might. Let's see. Layer 200,000. I don't know the words. I don't know the words. Who knows the words? What? Shut up. All right. Let's check out our neon greeniness. Let's see it. Let's see how it looks. Layer 200,000. Now this is more of a chartreuse, isn't it? We're gonna have to get a little bit more. I don't know. We'll have to get some. We'll have to get the magenta out, possibly. You guys are gonna make this super Studio Ghibli looking, aren't you? Oh my god! You guys are gonna make me look like I'm a Photoshop noob. That's okay though. I basically am. I don't have my number thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Skadoosh. This is not a layer, it's a group, but I will make a new layer just for you. Ah! Oh! What? It did it on its own. Oh shit, it does count the numbers. Oh no! Oh no! Yeah. Oh, this is gonna be an awful looking... See, the layer names that I had before used to make you cringe, Thug, and now look at what's happened. Oh shit. All right. Let's look at our original stuff. I like the kind of brown. We got some of that in there already. So let's punch it up. Let's actually make it stronger color. Because we're painting, right? I mean, gotta punch it a little bit. You're saving for an Insta poem? All right, you asked for it. That's your funeral. Do you get to pick the subject? Yeah, you can pick a subject. So long as it's relatively PG-13. That's not to say that I won't turn a poem into something foul. So if you tell me to do one about polar bears, I'll still find a way to put a red rocket in it or something. We'll see. All right, let's grab our magenta. And where are we going to put that? I think maybe hinting at magenta. Worst art director ever. Yeah, I'll be supplying the heavy lifting for the poem. You can help if you want, but I'll try and figure something out. There so is no such thing as a bad concept artist, just bad leadership. We'll have to make sure that it tints down and maybe even put some red on one of the figures somehow. We'll see. All right, I think we've got enough to start our... I want to grab this. Oh, shit. No! Let's put it up here. Set it to screen. I think it's a mid-gray, so let's warm it up. A little too warm. All right. I want that separate because one of the hardest things to do when you're doing this kind of painting and you want to paint back to forward is to paint lighting effects as you're going. Now, when you're painting traditionally, you have to do this no matter what. You don't have a choice. But since we're digitally painting, I can kind of cut corners in this respect. I can just paint everything back there sort of evenly lit and everything smooth and well, as rough as I like to prevent over detailing in the distance. And I don't have to worry about matching the hues of being lit and having the God rays come through. So we save those for last. All right, we got a new layer. Layer 200,001 is where we begin our opaques. And we are now 44 minutes in. All right, this is a good pace. I can live with this. We are going to, instead of doing it like we did with the Bloodflower study, where I went in and did it really painterly, this time we're going to take a different tack, and we're going to get real digital with this bitch. So amateur. You don't even know. I'm not worrying about too much accuracy just yet. Right now it's more putting in visual noise. Because the brush this is all going to melt deep into the background. None of it's going to be super focal pointy stuff. Just rough. It was doing the same thing where I was actually painting out all the different strokes in the previous one. But this is cutting corners for speed. Get some little bit of blues in there. Let's do a different one. Let's try this one. Nope, that's too opaque. How about you? What do you look like? Nope, that's it. Nope, nope. I so rarely use these brushes. Oh no, much too detailed. It cannot be noisy. Just slight noise. There's something there. Might be able to work with that. I like that there's sort of little implied stems in there. That's going to be useful later. Squint. 200,000 layers. Oh, yeah, I already read that one. Rename a layer. Oh, no, name a layer. What's this one going to be? Blue Eyes, White Dragon. That's the name of the layer you want? Is it this one? All right. There you go. You can see it better without the foot stuff. I'm going to officially have to have a foot stuff layer, I think, in every single Photoshop file that I create on Twitch. God damn it. Hopefully Blue Eyes White Dragon isn't some weird messed up rank of the Ku Klux Klan. Is it? I have been living under a rock. I lived on a boat for 5 years. No one else was around. I talked to my dog, and dolphins had orgies around me. Come on now. You're going to give me a little credit, slack here. So what's Blue Eyes White Dragon? You have to tell me now. Is it a euphemism for heroin? Oh, God damn it, Thug. Precisely. Which one will it be, Thug? It's got to be one of the ones that are not already named. Bottom layer is Dolphin Orgy. Done and done. Orgy is now a permitted term on my chat, so enjoy, gang. Don't hurt yourselves out there. Why not? Probably Fetish did it. Now it's time for Grandpa Brush to come in and clean up all that nonsense. What card game? I don't even know. Is it from Magic? I only played Magic. Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay, I never played Yu-Gi-Oh. Not a once. I was too mature for that. I played Magic the Gathering. None of your cartoon nonsense with your Pikachus and your giant eye weirdos. I accept your judgment. I do not care. What colors do I play in Magic? I'll take a guess. Take a guess as to the colors that I used to enjoy. Green, blue, good guess. Black, nice. A big green Timmy. Oh, you hurt my heart, sir. You hurt my heart. I had a few favored decks back then. Obviously, all the mechanics are totally different now, but back then I played a lot of blue and blue-black. One of my favorite decks was a Brood Pit deck where you would basically, it was a lot like Saproling decks, I guess, where it was just mushing out shit tons of tiny 1/1 creatures, 1/1 tokens, and then using enchantments that would mass increase their attack and defense powers. So Blood Moon, Brood Pit, certain vampires. I loved playing blue just for... It wasn't even about winning, it was just pissing people off. If I played blue, you're leaving? Oh, dude. You're gonna be outlawed, sir. Outlawed. You can't shit on the blue. Ah, you're a bad person, dude, Cameron. Which one? Which layer are you ruining? You gotta choose any. All right, well, just choose the one right above foot stuff, because then it makes it sound real weird. Definitely gonna have to unify back here. Let's do a... That didn't work. He does now. Thanks for the follow, Melon Technology. It is the most advanced technology of all. Yeah, unifying those values helps out, and getting the colors to behave with each other. Wait, are melons fruits? I don't even know. Or is melon its own category? I need an agriculturist in here. I'm going to use some of these grays that we've got, but I'm going to use them with slight bits of warmth to give us kind of a earthy tone. Because they're the same values as the surrounding area, those colors can vibrate a little bit, which will create some visual interest back there. Quick little hints of color. I'm creating, by sort of painting in these vertical and horizontal strokes, I'm creating almost sort of like a brick structure where it's just trying to imply undulations that are going up and down and have a little bit more complexity than is actually there. Pretty sure it's a fruit? Well, you would know. You're the melon technology. So I will trust you on that one for now, until you are proven wrong. All right, let's get some darky darks in there. Opposite our lighty lights. So I want the darks in the distance, but I don't want them to be saturated. By carving in these little darks and doing these little sub compositions, I'm creating the positives and negatives the positive and negative spaces of the different bushes and the overlapping trees. But what I'm looking for in my reference is I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for things and places where I can push the depth with the darkness and sort of overall implied shapes just by carving out those negative bits. Just like when we were doing paintings of cloth or any other elements in an image where you have opportunities for repetition, you want to go out of your way to avoid specifically doing an alternating rhythm. So a shape, then a shape, then a shape that are mirroring each other or things like that. In order to make it feel organic and realistic, you have to have really big variances in your shapes. And you need to think about that both on the positive and the negative side. So the positives in this case will be our lighter shapes. They don't need to be trees. They could be anything. And then the negative shapes in this case will be our shadows. I'm just assigning arbitrarily which is positive or negative. It really doesn't matter. But what does matter is that your positive shapes vary and your negative shapes vary. You don't want to make stripes on accident. I do it all the time. So stripey. This is also an easy way to imply scale. Even with these distant elements, having little points of accent values are nice. Little areas where, you know, there's a little reward for the viewer taking the time to look. Now, if you completely ignore the colors that we have here and ignore the structure of everything that I've built, all these are slightly varied value scribbles. I haven't actually drawn anything that you could specifically call a tree yet. It's just scribbles, negative and positive shapes. And if you can keep that mindset for as long as possible while following the rhythms that those root ideas or symbols of those shapes intend, you're going to end up with some fresh looking trees or whatever it's going to be. Always flipping. Viewfinder's looking hot. You like that? All right. I'm wondering if at this depth we might be able to get away with hinting at some of the greens that we were talking about, some of our neon greens. It might be too far back. There might be too much atmospheric perspective here to pull this off. We'll have to do it up in the foreground, but excuse me, I want to kind of see if I can do little pops of color here and there. What this is meant to imply, you know, for a viewer that's looking at this, not when we get to the finish, when we have all the detailing in, all of this stuff is going to kind of fade into the background. All of the detail work that you see me doing here with all these tiny strokes, you're not going to see. It's all going to mush back in space. But by having these little hints of color and these little pops here and there, it's going to imply that variety. And these will be sort of my subsurface scattering strokes. So they can't be just anywhere. I couldn't put them in the bright side. They need to be actually on the edge of the dark side, because they're representing where the light is coming through the leaves, and the leaves have become a light source themselves underneath. Don't want to overdo it either. I think I'm bordering on overdoing it already. Just little hints. Little happy touches. You didn't hear that. Let's take a look at our reference again for those really distant bits. Distance bit. trying to group big negative shapes together and simplify. So you see I have here is a big, overall for the full composition, I have a big light shape right here. And then I'm carving into it with a dark shape. And then I'm going to do a little light shape here. And I'm going to just keep undulating back and forth, trying to create visual interest with the shapes. Completely abstractly. It's an abstraction. It's not intended. I'm not thinking right now about trees in and of themselves. I'm thinking about just those basic shapes and creating that visual variety that's going to hint at a natural forest that doesn't feel overly designed by virtue of overly designing it. Pretty funny stuff. Life is riddled with ironies, both big and small. You'll notice that I'm leaving the brush strokes kind of streaky and quasi-vertical here. This is for a purpose. I'm going to later start painting in the hints of trunks and things like that. And in order to make sure that the trunks feel like they're jutting in slightly different angles, having something that's a constant, like these brush strokes, will help kind of sell the variety and the naturalness of these tree trunks coming out in front of it. So I'm always laying the groundwork for the next level to make my job easier in the long run. So, question here: Did I do any work for the upcoming Commander Legend set? For probably. The problem is so when we're doing the artwork, I'm working on stuff right now that won't be released for at least a year, and there's no sort of like they don't tell us what's going in what. Usually when the art finally gets spoiled, it's spoiled for us too. And so much time happens. Like this really has happened to me fairly frequently. They'll do a visual spoil and I'll be like, huh? I painted that? I completely forget what I was working on. I very much only think about the current projects. I do remember when I do a painting that I'm really happy with, I'm excited to see the visual spoil, but it's never when I think it's going to be. And it's also really rare when I'm super happy with a painting. Okay, let's leave those kind of where they are for now. Let's get into this foreground bit a little. Just a touch. Now I'm painting over my magentas, but I'll bring those back. I'm just popping them out for now. Yeah, it's a super long time between actual assignment and the release. So one that I was looking forward to the release of was, and I think this was the last set or maybe the set before, was Peer into Abyss, which is sort of a cosmic horror inspired painting. And I was really excited to see what people thought of that, because it was one where I had free reign. They said, do whatever you want that's going to depict this feeling, and just hit us with something crazy. And I was like, oh, you took off the leg weights. I'm about to get crazy up in here. And they let me go with it. And they were like, yeah, do this. This is great. It was super fun. Those are the ones I really love when they really let me kind of just go nuts. All right, there's definitely a break in color here. Let's make a new layer. This one's going to be 22. And I want to see, make another layer. No! No! You've ruined me. We'll have to be careful with that. I actually have no idea how high the layers will go in Photoshop before it starts spazzing out. Yeah, the faces and the mouths in the faces and the mouths card. Highly upsetting. I did a post on Twitter like a week or two ago where I was showing a bunch of different cards I'd worked on, and somebody had written, because I showed the Filigree Familiar and Peers into Abyss in the same sort of set, and they freaked out. They were like, the same person that painted my favorite cutie boy card painted this monstrosity that gives me nightmares. Which I thought was apropos. So the reason I was focusing on building out those shapes is precisely for what I'm doing right now, which is to make lighter shapes that carve up into them and create the implied contours of the shapes of the closer elements, the closer trees in this case. I feel like they probably tell Seb McKinnon to just go buck wild. Yeah, probably. There was definitely a change in the last, like, I'd say maybe 8 or so years with how they did things. Like, it used to be much more buck wildin' back in the day. And now, because, you know, they have to tie the novels and the web comics and all that stuff into the greater narrative, and you know, there's usually an actual arc for the different planes. They have to be much tighter with the art direction now. Oh geez. I built that new layer 22 and absolutely didn't paint anything on it. Like a dildo. Let's get little hints of magenta in here. What this is going to do is, so I'm simultaneously adding a light value that's breaking the dark bottom shade of the shrub and the trees that are overlapping everything and kind of blocking the light to it. And then by hinting at similarly valued magentas in there, what I'm creating is the simultaneous contrast of a green next to a red. And that will help indicate subconsciously that this is a change in material. This is a change in surface and direction. Ayah. What the hell are you doing? Jesus Christ. She will absolutely call back again. Just can't get enough. You know, it's the fame, really. It's just painting horror cards where characters are swallowing their own faces ad infinitum, ad nauseum. The ladies just can't get enough. So by spotting a little bit of light back there, I'm gonna now, let's look at our reference again. Let's do a little bit up here. So with the values that we have here, I'm going to do the same thing. You see how within the value key of the area, I'm going to start breaking it up and imply the ground plane by changing and the ground material by hitting that area with strong magenta hints. So let's turn off the color just for a second to take a look. See how the values of all those little colors and the color hints that I just introduced don't change at all. The values are really, really close to each other within, 5% or so. But when the color's on, those little pops of color richen that area. They enrich that area and create a little bit of visual noise in that simultaneous contrast that your eyes just recognize. It's not something that you consciously think about. It's that subtle manipulation of your viewers. I want a strong cool. I think I'm going to just kind of have this all shower down back here, like my reference does. Kind of creating this like zigzag fall down pattern. What this does when you choose to make these sub patterns that are inside the larger shape of the positive field here is you're just going to end up with these little, as long as the value keys remain the same, you're going to end up with little sub sort of mini compositions. So you want to take advantage of it. And you have to follow the same rules all the way down. So even though we're working in this smaller space, we still don't want to make too many similarities, too many strokes that are the same, because it starts to get belabored looking. So here I might do like a thin band instead of a big broad shape, you see? All right, so we've kind of worked out the background pretty well. Now we can detail the distant background, and then we can start moving forward in the focal depth and rendering out tighter and tighter. I don't want to render too much more in the background. I feel like we've got that worked out. But if I were to sort of, do a cross section in depth for this plane, we could grab a new layer. And I'd say kind of where this cross section is cut is like this, like back behind these things. So all that stuff is my distant stuff. And I don't want to detail any of that distant stuff any more than I've already detailed it in terms of complexity. I'm going to go in and I'm going to imply the trunks and some branches and things like that, but I'm not going to really render any of them. I may do like little hints of light or shadow, but no more than probably 2 tones for each thing. And by keeping those things separate, and then as I get closer and closer to what I want my focal depth to be, my actual focal point, that will be the tightest that I render, and it'll have the strongest contrasts in value, the strongest contrasts in color. All of my accent values and colors and things like that will really pop there, and the rest of this should visually get pushed back. Lots of a bluey gray. It's not the right brush for this. It's close. Let's see if it's you. Nope, definitely not. You. Nope. Eh. Who's my friend here? Who's gonna be my friend? Ooh. Yes. There we go. Ah. See, so by going simple, it's even more important that I get the right color because I want to be able to do this with singular strokes. Or the minimum amount of strokes. Maybe not singular, but the minimum. I'm exaggerating, of course, but I always do. It's because you're here. You make me lie to you. You do this to yourself. And then because this is on a separate layer, we can soften where we want to get rid of some of the overlap, or if we have overlap that we need to imply. See how it's not showing up so much there? That means that the value key of that area has ranged a little bit lighter. So that means that in order for that shadow patch for me to show a trunk inside it, I have to go lighter than the shadows themselves. So now we got to just brighten it up just a tad. But I have to be careful. If I take it too far back over here, then it's too bright for this area. It'll bring it, the trunk will be brought forward. So there are places where I may want that. Let's say I want that here. To remember, I wanted to imply that this one was in front of the others. Okay, no problem. Same here, let's do it here too. See how it brings it towards us? Just some happy little trees. Same thing here, once again. According to the light source I've already outlined, that's a completely incorrect cast shadow, but no one will notice. I hope. We'll see. Hush. Keep your fruits to yourself. Alright. I'm going to do a little bit of sort of what I call lightning bolting, which is just weird branches. Want to go wherever they want to go. Gotta kind of let them. Just say, all right, you lead the way, sir. Do as thou wilt. Just creates visual noise. So see how much depth and madness we've got back there? And we can push this even further. We're going to make a new layer. We're going to do some atmospheric perspective again. Again. Screen. Let's grab a bluey gray. I really want this part lost. The detail here doesn't matter to me at all because all of this foreground stuff is going to carve out of it all nice and purty. That tree's gonna have a real purty mouth. Yep, we're done with the background. So remember that the line that I put in to carve out the background, that's it. We're done with that. As I start rendering the nearer sort of cross sections of depth, then we'll go back and forth, but I want to get more of the foreground done before I start really over-rendering the background, because then if you over-render the background, then everything that's going to be in the midground, you're going to have to render even more. You're just giving yourself more work. What's my number one rule? Do it the laziest way possible. So there is now our background group. Boop. I may have actually over-rendered it too much already. That's how easy that is to do. Okay. Now there's a question of our young ladies here. And how big to actually make them. The universal symbol for having fun is throwing your arms in the air. It's probably not true. Don't listen to me. This person's totally having fun. Maybe this one's pushing the other one. This is how I have fun. Take that, you. Sploosh. No, this quickly became a murder scene, so maybe we should tone that down. Let's try something else. Yeah, splash fight. That's ideal. I have brought you as a sacrifice to the Gators. Oh, maybe I was too hasty. Maybe we just get rid of the one that's pulling a gun on the other one. It's really tough to paint a silhouette when you don't have a background that you can see it over. For these kinds of silhouettes, it's fine to just kind of go back and forth and play with the shapes until something starts to feel right. But the only way in my opinion, the only way you can really get away with this is if you spend a long time studying actual figurative work. Doing figure drawings, figure paintings. You learn to recognize the silhouette. Even though I'm just doing silhouettes, there's a lot of anatomical thinking going into it, because you can't where the outer contours might divot here or there are entirely dependent on how the anatomy overlaps. So I have to think about things. I'm still thinking about it in terms of a three-dimensional shape, but I'm just like taking sort of a flat black shadow shot of it. But the knowledge is still the same. This isn't a shortcut to get out of having to do and learn, your figurative stuff. You can imply the depth of the water by seeing how deep they stand in it. Slowly refining these shapes to both capture the anatomy that's creating the contours, but also I need to capture their genders. They can't be super amorphous there. Even though these are really small in comparison to the entirety of the image, it actually, not even though, especially because they are so small compared to the rest of the image, the contours and getting the accuracy of the feel of those shapes is even more important. Ribcage. I'm gonna make another layer. It's just real dirty. This will be refined with splashes and you know, water and bits of atmosphere. But right now I just need to be able to see the figures. Are you sure you want me to do that? Isn't that going to give you a migraine? I'll never look at it. I'll just go in and turn off and on layers until I find the right one. Oh, weird. Wow. Oh, no, it's actually... Okay. Like, whoa. I thought maybe I had accidentally created rhythms in the depth of it. But, well, I did. Look at that. That one did it, too. Happens sometimes. These get these weird tangencies that you never intended. I definitely want this moment between these two to be real sweet and kind of silly. So I think, yeah, splash fighting is going to be perfect for it. Also, storytelling-wise, this is what they call a save the cat moment, because it's going to show that our main character has a heart, has a sweetness. It will also have some other impacts for some of the story elements that come later, but we're not there yet. This is one of those things that you just know by doing it so many times, but I don't think about it that much anymore. But the other reason that you want to make sure that these silhouettes are accurate is that if you're going to do the kind of painting I'm going to be doing on them, where I'm just using clipping masks, the more accurate the silhouette is, the easier it is to light that figure, and the more you can get away with in terms of kind of smushing things around once you get to the lighting part. I have to think about all of the aspects that would contribute to the silhouette. So, for example, in the hair, yeah, I can paint in hair and imply that hair, but the hair has to be clumped and heavy because it's wet, right? So you got to be thinking about all of this stuff. It's just like writing a story. It's all world building. You have to constantly be thinking, if this then that, if this then that. So we're in a rainforest river. The characters are playing. They're splashing each other with water. Then you got to have the hair also be wet and heavy. That's right. IFTT. That might be getting laborious there. I'm even trying to, if you'll remember when we were painting up Bloodflower and designing her character, I still want to capture and imply that the anatomy that tells us that these are women, of roughly Mayan, Aztec, Mesoamerican descent, and natives specifically at that. So much can be told in the silhouette. By pushing the cheek out, we can show that the character is laughing or smiling. You see? I'm not specifically trying to do cheek here. This might be ear. I need to know. You guys won't know this, but as I'm painting, I'm thinking it. I need to know which arms are the right arm, which arm is the left arm. I need to ultimately make it so that it's clear to a person that isn't painting it or is just looking at it what is happening in this space. The hair is going to be sticking to the body. That's why I'm not trying to push a whole bunch of loose hairs, is because it's sticking to the body, it's sticking to itself, it's much clumpier. I'm going to grab the trees layer and the bit of atmosphere that's going to be from splashing. I'm going to try it. I've never actually done this before, but I'm going to try to imply a prism in that. I know I'm screwing myself here, but I think that would be interesting. Okay, we've definitely labored on that for a while, so now let's back off of that. Let's do a quick. We'll do a pass at this mid-ground space, which is sort of roughly in the same level that they're at. We can totally cheat. We can grab some of the stuff we've got going on already. Okay, let's do a slight saturate or hue change. We're doing this just to imply that this is clearly a different plant in a different level of space, or Z depth, if you will. And I need this to, I'm going to paint over this with the darkness of this tree silhouette here, but I need something to paint that silhouette against. So I need a nice light field. So I'm going to overpaint it a little bit, take it up into where I want that silhouette to be. Notice that I am intentionally getting more and more saturated. Maybe this is a time for us to kind of bust out some of our leaves, our leaf brushes. Not the brush I was after, but I'll use it for now, just to get that variety in there. Oh, this is the leaf brush we used for that one waterfall painting. In so much that it's not a leaf brush at all, it's a brick brush. I like to make my job hard. It's what I do best. Just shoot myself in the foot. Ah. There we go. Oh. You're not giving me what I want either. Well, laws, yes. So these shapes are dictating that I'm going to have to go back and introduce some of these details into the foliage I've got in the background, but that's not a concern right now. We'll get to it. So see how on this layer I'm trying to do like a second or even a third level of detailing, working within the value structure that I have. But the goal is to make this really pull in front of the other ones. And so I can even soften some of the edges that I have in the distance. But again, we'll deal with that later when we try to unify the detail differences in space. This will be great because then those magentas will have like a really nice field of dark to play in. I need to have enough to make this feel like that focal depth and to give the visual payoff that I'm after for my viewer, and no more. And it's such a challenge to know when that is. It's the figuring that out is kind of half the battle. But here's some tips. Basically, you have two options to do this. It's practicing and overdoing it and underdoing it and recognizing when you've done that. And then the other way is to observe other painters and look at the different levels. Like different painters handle this point of detail, like where the focal depth is, in totally different ways. And that's why, this can be a very subjective part of the process. So find painters that kind of their visuals kind of tickle your brain a little bit, and how they detail is satisfying to your eye, and then try to emulate that. See if you can pull off getting those little bits of detail where they need to be. Okay, so let's make a new layer. How are we on time? 2 hours. Let's get some dark. Because now we have very high contrasts, a high contrast area to work with, we can do very subtle branches in the darkness here. I want this under that. Actually, we'll just leave those and just drop it literally under the layer. Some of these aren't showing up because I did paint into the shadows of this section, so we'll have to go back on top. Not a biggie. Actually, that slight gradient is kind of visually interesting, I think. This is me kind of introducing more detail to these slightly closer distant trees to meld the detail visual distance. Because I have all the value information there already, I can just color pick from what I've got. No problem. See what I did? I just made 4 strokes that were exactly the same. Do as I say, not as I do. This little bit here is pretty spoopy. I'm going back and cleaning up these parts that are a little too mushy from using the smudge brush too much right there, and I'm doing that by just introducing tertiary detail. As long as I don't break the value key, it'll help add variety to the field right there. Doesn't take much. Little bits of scribbles. Happy little scribbles. Oops. Now let's do it with the ground plane. Let's turn off our trees layer for just a second there. What you're doing is so much like Bob Ross used to talk about. You're just creating these little points of detail, these little areas for your viewer to walk through, to enjoy. These little details that you notice when you go on a little nature walk, when you're meandering through the forest, walking down the river. There's lots of rivers up here in Oregon. And you see little things, little brambles, little bits of loam, twigs, places where the mud bunches up in an interesting way. Old bones, deer antlers, little bits of beaver dams that have washed down. And they all kind of tell a little bit of a story about that area. So when you're doing this kind of detailing, these little, and they're just little strokes. But if you think about it as you're doing it, if you kind of put yourself in that place and you get there mentally, not only is it more fun to do because you're discovering you're discovering the place as it's built before you, but it also gives you little ideas on how you might just do a scribble, because that's basically all we're doing right now is just scribbling. Let's do another. Gotta get our neon-y greens in there. I'm probably over rendering this stuff because we don't have our girls layer on, so we can't even see what I just did. I created a splash right there. Let's undo those. Put it elsewhere. Okay, let's finish up this ground plane a little bit more. We really need to see the separation between the ground and the water. I'm going to paint right over these little glistening marks that I made to give notes to myself, because they are not sharp, not even remotely sharp enough to actually pull off that effect. And it's more important, this is I can't remember the name of the technique, but to do big smooth gradients with your acrylics in order to, it's not scumble, it's something like that. And it gives you a nice smooth layered effect. I want that first, and then we can carve our sharp glints and little speculars into it, and that's always last. The colors I'm choosing, the values I'm choosing, this is familiarity with the materials. It's just experience with studying painting water of different, murkiness, that sort of thing. I cover it very extensively in my materials episodes on Gumroad's archive. Right where a river hitches like this, you're going to see lots of little sort of stunts in the riverbank, which are the result of the water as it moves and comes around it. It comes around at a different speed, and so it'll whirl dust and sediment up into patterns that you see that'll ripple along the bank. Oh, this is all underneath those leaves, so I can just paint. I don't need to paint around it. I want to imply kind of a slightly clear path that our young ladies came through to get to the riverbed. We're going to use our magenta here to imply our path. Okay. Are we on time? Okay, we got about a 10 minutes to throw into this. I'm a cheater, cheating. Ha ha ha. Watch me go. Once again, we're going to play with overlap, which means edge control, super important. Hi, Frios. I'll get to you in 1 second. Having any problems turning off some layers and working on an image, or do you do it when I've already have a pretty established illustration? What do you mean turning off some layers? Do you mean like you turn off a foreground layer or something like that, and you painted too long on the background? It happens to all of us. Yeah, I mean, I had the characters hidden and painted on the background, but also if you notice, there were a couple of times where I turned them back on and there were tangencies or there were problems that were created because I didn't have them on. So, you have to pretty consistently remember to turn on those things. If the thing that you're turning off, like in my situation, is a focal point, that's on you. You really got to remember to turn that back on pretty regularly. But it does happen. I forget. Whenever I have a layer hidden too long, you always end up merging into something. Yeah, I've definitely been there. Cool. One of the ways that I prevent doing that merging thing and then also help remind myself to turn on the layers is to do things like grouping them. So, and I'll usually group them by the plane that it's on. So I'll group my distant background, I'll group my midground, I'll group my foreground, and then I'll group my figures wherever they may be. Okay, so because this is such a big part, we're still kind of have to, it's definitely more detailed in the background, but I'm still going to have to kind of unify my values a little bit better. They're a bit all over the place here. Because this is much closer, the way I want to paint it anyway, is that this is closer to us and the water is going back around behind it. So I don't know if you guys are, I think that's the same direction. I don't know, it might be backwards for you, camera mirror action, but yeah, I think you understand what I'm trying to say here. Yep, have to go darker. All right. We didn't finish, but we got pretty damn close. I'd say maybe another hour, 2 hours on this will be it. But I'm going to have to shut us down for tonight. Any last minute questions? Yeah, big process. For those of you that just joined or for a recap, let's take a look at what we just did. Turn off the layers, turn off the layers. All right, started here. This was when we started together. Built up all of my foundational values to start, and then I grouped that, remember? So that was my first grouping. And then colorized, colorized the rough background, see? Enriched. Started carving out some different shapes. Unified with some atmosphere. Started getting deeper in the carving out in the background. Detailing out outer contours of light shapes. Added the details of the trunks. One more pass of atmosphere. Mid-ground detail. And then we'll finish this up and the girls on the next one. But it's pretty substantial jump to an almost finished painting in a few hours there. Not bad. I wouldn't call it a speed paint, but not bad. Got our figures. Those will be really fun when they get in. I think the water effects everything that's going to happen down there in that sort of little center region is really what's going to make this thing work. The rest is just going to kind of melt away, and it's going to be how the light and the color are playing on the figures and the details, and then the splash effects will be really big. So yeah, super fun. Do I use several modes to color from black and white to color, or just one mode? This time I just used a colorized layer, two colorized layers. I don't. The reason I don't generally use a different colorizing thing like overlay or soft light or things like that is because it changes the values a lot more than the color does. Color changes values too, but it's very subtle. You have to be looking for it. Most people don't even notice it. But when you do soft light, overlay, hard light, any of that stuff, yeah, you're going to get big color changes, but you're also going to change your value key. And the value key is the most important part. Absolutely, it changes your values, yeah. Cool, all right. Well, good hanging, gang. Thanks for watching and chatting while we paint. Hopefully y'all enjoyed yourselves. See y'all. Take it easy. As always, paint smart, paint sexy. I'm Izzy, a professional writer, concept artist, and illustrator. I've taught painting for a dozen years or so, on and offline.